now we're going to enter in our good friend Tony Pauline. He's our chief NFL draft analyst and insider here at Pro Football Network. Tony's joining us right now to be able to talk about the ins and outs. What's going on with the NFL Scouting Combine? So let's welcome in Tony Pauline to today's episode of the show. Tony, great to see you. What a busy couple of weeks it's been. I know you were down there in Mobile, Alabama for the Senior Bowl and being able to evaluate a lot of these prospects. Man, it's just, this is the busiest time of the year outside of it. The draft starts in September.
Yeah, and the draft starts in May for me. But even before the Senior Bowl, Cam Mellor and I were in Vegas for 3 days of shrine practice. So it was back to back, which I liked. By the way, you guys did a phenomenal job at the Super Bowl. Outstanding job with all those interviews. It was absolutely fantastic.
Thank you. I mean, it was a blast, and we got to sit down with Ike Mekwonu a little bit to talk about him. Man, he's massive in person, Tony, but looking forward to him, just a humble young man, and looking forward to seeing what he could do in the NFL draft here. But, Tony, there's been a lot of conversation right now on the NFL Scouting Combine. What is the latest word on how the league will handle players that are being invited to the Combine this year, literally just several weeks from now?
Yeah, what I'm told is basically a reconfirmation of a story that I broke during the Senior Bowl, and that is the players will be in a bubble at the Combine. What does that mean? I'm told that the players will be relegated to the Players Hotel, which is the Crowne Plaza in Indianapolis, and Lucas Oil Stadium. That's it. They're not going to be able to have any contact with their agents. They're not going to be able to have any contact with their trainers. They're not going to be able to go out one night and have dinner in one of the restaurants or the bars or whatever, the breweries in Indianapolis. I'm told right now it's the hotel and it's the Lucas Oil Stadium, and that's it. I'm sure when they're done, after they're on the field, the workout is done, they can do what they want. But there's going to be what I'm told as of yesterday, and National Football Scouting, who runs the Combine, has been telling agents this about their players. They're not going to be able to have contact with anybody once they get to Indianapolis.
Will this have any potential effect on players working out at the Scouting Combine?
Yeah, I'm told absolutely yes. And here's why. What you don't see behind the scenes are the trainers who are presently training the Combine invitees in states like Florida and Texas and Arizona and California. They bring their modus operandi to Indianapolis, and they rent out large conference rooms. They rent out rooms in the Indianapolis Convention Center at some of the hotels like the Omni Severin, and they rent out these rooms so they bring their players in, and the players get stretched, and the players get massages, and the players work on their 40 starts, and they work. You'll see it if you've ever been to the Combine. If you go to the Indianapolis Convention Center, there are guys there practicing the 20-yard shuttle. There are little pieces of tape so they can work on their touches, which is important. You don't see that. That is off the table. I'm told that the trainers are not going this year, and I'm told that a lot of the players are going to hold off from running the 40 at the Combine because they won't be able to get stretched or massaged or work on those things prior to their actual on-the-field workout. The other thing that I'm told is that right now the Combine schedules are the bench press is taking place the same day as the 40 time. The bench press is taking place the same day as the on-the-field workouts for the guys. So the receivers will be bench pressing in the morning and have their on-the-field workout later in the day. A lot of guys are saying, we're going to wait till pro day. I'm not going to have my guy bench press in the morning and then do the on-the-field workout when the trainer's not there to stretch him, even though that's the way it happens in pro day. So right now, the way it looks, I am expecting from what I'm hearing, fewer players than usual running the 40, especially at the skill positions, especially the receivers, the tight ends, the defensive backs. I think you won't see too many offensive and defensive linemen opt out. Probably won't see too many linebackers opt out. But the defensive backs, the receivers, the tight ends, the running backs, you're probably going to see fewer players than usual actually run the 40 because of that.
When we look at team representatives, general managers, scouts, head coaches, how will this affect them? Will they all be in a bubble as well when they come to Indianapolis?
I'm told no, the teams are not going to be in the bubble. Now, remember, we talk about how the Senior Bowl is basically the unofficial start of free agency. And I've got some information that I've been asked to hold back, some pretty good information, which we'll let loose in a couple of weeks. The Combine is really when the free agency starts to kick off. It's right before the unofficial tampering period. And what happens is the agents descend upon Indianapolis and they meet with team representatives, the cap people, the general managers, the assistant managers. So they start to feel each other out. What I'm told is that the teams will not be kept in a bubble. So the team, general managers, people I just mentioned, will actually be able to speak with agents and get that process started of the free agency process started to kind of get a feel of what teams are interested in, what players, what kind of money they're interested in. That will take place at the combine.
Well, and one thing to look at as well, a lot of times these are where interviews happen. How do you think that they'll handle player interviews here inside the bubble here for the players there and outside of that? Will it change anything from how organizations operate?
What I was told yesterday, I have yet to confirm it, is that the combine interviews will be virtual. They will not be face-to-face, which makes sense because if you're going to put the players in the bubble, but you're not going to have the team representatives in a bubble, you're kind of basically going to mess it all up if you're going to let those team representatives meet the players, right? So what I'm told is right now, and again, I'm still waiting for confirmation, is that the interviews of the players at the combine will be done virtually, which is kind of strange because what happens is, some of those combine interviews are historic for good or for bad. We remember the whole Ja'Kai Polite incident where the teams were screaming at him, asking him all kinds of questions, and he kind of froze up. And things went bad for Ja'Kai Polite. I remember having dinner with Ezra Cleveland 2 years ago at the combine, the last combine that took place. And Ezra Combine was telling me how one team, who I won't name, was screaming at him when they interviewed him. They said, your tape is dog crap. Although they didn't use the word dog crap. They used the other word that we're all familiar with. And they just were screaming at him from every angle. That's what goes on in those interviews. I don't know it's going to be the same virtually if, in fact, that's the way it goes. And that's what I'm told is going to happen with the team interviews of the players invited to the combine.
A lot of changes in this year's NFL Scouting Combine. Now, Tony, I'm sure there's probably nothing definitive out there. We know that the Scouting Combine eventually will be on the move to different locations in the future. Is this also a process that you believe personally will also be applicable to those ones, or is this just more so like COVID precaution?
Applicable in what sense? I don't know.
Well, in a sense, so like how they're doing it now this year, do you think this will now become the standard for the years forward for the interview process, putting guys in a bubble, the workouts, and obviously the training aspect of it?
No, I tend to doubt it. I think it's probably more COVID precautions. Obviously, we're seeing changes in what teams can and cannot ask during the interview process. But, listen, the combine is a massive job interview. That's all it is for a lot of these guys. You got guys who are basically preparing or trying to get better draft positioning. And then you have the teams that are ready to fork over hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in salary to the players. So it's a massive job interview. And both teams, the players want to impress and the teams don't want to miss. So I don't think that the way they run it is going to change all that much, even if the combine does move out of Indianapolis, which unfortunately it's eventually going to do.
Well, we appreciate all your insight here. Tony Pauline is our chief NFL draft analyst and insider here at Pro Football Network. He does a fantastic job, and we have some really exciting stuff coming here in the next couple of weeks as it pertains to potentially the NFL draft, guides and tools and resources that make football fans a little bit more informed as to some of the prospects in this year's NFL draft. A lot of work behind the scenes by Tony Pauline. Tony, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for jumping on to today's episode of PFN Daily.
Thanks for having me.